Uh, Good morning. Uh, let's go and look. We have learned a Docker network, right? Um, so what we are going to do is like let's try to understand little more depth into that with a mini assignment or with a mini project. Okay. Now there are few four things what we are going to check before we go and do the lab. Okay. So let me share my screen and okay. The number one question I can ask when I just to understand your network knowledge. Okay. Now I have a container. Let's consider that this is my private EC2 instance. Okay. And if you know the answer, please speak up, unmute, and give me the answer. Okay. This is the scenario. This is my EC2 instance, which is running um, in a private subnet. Okay. And inside this, I have my container. Okay. No, it's so this is my host machine or my EC2 instance, which is running in my private subnet. My application is running inside this particular container. So I have my container one. Now the so my application running as container. So the application have an API, okay, uh, which basically or we have my application need to talk to an API which is in the internet. Okay. So there is an API call my application which is running inside my private subnet need to make it to the uh, to the internet. That means there is a separate website or there is an API which my application which is running inside my container want to go and speak to. Okay. So let's consider that uh, this is that API which is running as a different website or running as a different URL API to call. Okay. Now my question is it possible? Is it possible for my EC2 instance or is it possible for my container which is running inside my private EC2 instance to go and talk to this API? Is it possible? Yes or no? Please speak up. Is it possible for my container which is running on my private EC2 instance to go and talk to an API over the internet? If you're not giving this answer, I'm not going to continue. Simple.
It's not possible.
Okay. One person is saying that it's not possible. Anyone else?
Not
There are 20,
not possible.
28 people, so I need to get at least 20 answers. Is it possible? Is it possible or not?
Yes.
I didn't get your answer. Is it possible? Hello.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you got my question?
Yeah. Not possible actually.
It's not possible. Okay. Anyone else? Guys, please unmute and speak, or else this is it. I mean, I will just wind up the class and go. I don't care if you are getting the session or not. If you are not understood the question, I'll repeat again. But if not, please speak up now. I can wait 45 minutes or 1 hour until you speak.
So can you repeat the question?
Okay. So I have an EC2 instance running in my private subnet. So this is a private server. Inside this, my client told to deploy an application, okay, as a container. Now this application have an API, okay, which basically need to go and talk to outside world. I mean, the application will call an API which is over the internet, okay, which is outside our organization. So my question is, will it possible for a container to go and talk to this API outside our subnet or outside our VPC? Is it possible? So the people told that it is not possible.
Possible, I think.
Okay, Arjun is saying it is possible. Anyone else?
Yes, sir, it's possible.
Possible, sir.
Okay, why it is possible? How it is possible? Those who
Because
told possible? Yeah.
container will look for IP and like gateway and routable.
Okay.
So it is possible, right? Like to talk to an
I mean,
IP.
which IP they are talking? Which IP they are looking?
External API IP.
It's an external IP, right? So how my container, which is running on a private subnet, will go and talk to that?
Actually,
You told it is possible, and just tell me how it is possible. Simple answer.
actually, container identified by IP and gateway, right? Routable.
That
So
is for that is for internal connection you are talking about. Internal containers can talk to each other via IP, or it basically not via an IP, it is via name, that DNS name.
okay.
This is an API which is existing outside my internet, okay, which is running inside a different website. So how a container which is running on my subnet will go and talk to that? Is it possible now? So the simple answer is it is possible. You, I don't know how many of you know the basics of VPC again. This is a private subnet. So private subnet means I have a NAT gateway which basically have a NATing possible. So anything which is running inside a private subnet can go and talk to any request which is originating from my private subnet will go outside the internet via NAT. Okay, so don't expect an interviewer to ask only from Docker. Don't expect me to only to ask questions from Docker. Okay, I am like I am sitting as an interviewer who knows AWS, your Linux, your Docker, your ECS, your Terraform, all sort of things. Don't expect that you will get separate questions from separate services. No, one question. So if I ask, is it possible or not? You should have asked me the questions towards me, like is it on the which subnet, so it is in a which VPC, whatever VPC I'm talking about. That's why specifically I told it is a private subnet. The EC2 instance is in the private subnet. So don't expect your interviewer asking a question like how you write an exam. If you have a physics exam only from physics, it's not like that. It's like you are sitting for a viva at the end of your class. Viva person can ask a question from chemistry, mix of chemistry and physics, mix of biology and whatever it is. So it up to the interviewer. The only thing is that you should know the fundamentals. Okay, so simple answer, it is possible. That means any containers which is running inside a EC2 instance or a host can go and make an API call outside. Okay, so that is the first thing which we are going to look. I mean, request from a container to a internet, that is the first thing we are going to check. Now inside my EC2 instance, I have, so inside my host I have a Mongo installed or a MongoDB installed. So inside my server I have my MongoDB installed. Okay, now this Docker need to go and talk to, or this application need to go and talk to this particular database. That is the second thing which we are going to check. So one connection we are going to check whether my container can go and talk to the outside world. Second thing we are going to check, okay, instead of creating a Mongo, I have a MongoDB installed on my this laptop. So if my container can go and talk to this MongoDB or not, that is the second thing we are going to. That basically any request which is originating from the container to the host machine. I mean, whether my container can go and talk to the host machine. That is the second network possibility we are going to check. And the last one which we have done, we have learned is whether my container, this particular container can go and talk to the another container which is running on the same host. Okay. Now, this is what we are going to check. Okay. Now, so how we can do that? So first we will divide. So you can see that there are three connections which we are going to check. The first thing what we are going to do is over here. Let's see whether my container can talk to outside world or not. Okay. Now, where is this? Okay, 1 second. Okay. Okay,
Shilpa
so this
Shetty
is my
and her
application, again a
family and
node
spotted
application. So this is
outside a
my node
Juhu
application
restaurant.
and my
Shilpa
front end
Shetty
part.
Kundra is a true fashion
So if you
hero
look at
who
here, here, my my Node.js application is basically go on calling this API. Okay. Now, so the app.js file, this particular app.js file, uh, where my application code is having this particular application, there is a part in which, okay, in which they are trying to get some details from a different API. Okay, so if I copy paste this, so they are basically coming and making a request over here. You can see here, it's basically going and getting these people, they are going and getting this. I mean, they basically making a call to this particular API. So if I click on this, go over here. Okay, now what happens here is this is a list of films by the Star Wars. So it's a Star Wars movie list detail over on this particular API. Okay, I'm just creating a sample one. Okay, so what happened is this Node.js application is basically calling this API. So this Node.js application is our application. Inside that application, they are trying to talk to an API, which is this, which is available over the internet. Okay, and basically, and this API, what you are seeing over here, is not owned by us. I mean, basically, it is not running inside my container. It is not managed by my organization. It's a different third-party API, which is created and managed by a different person. Okay. Now, what happens is this particular application will go and fetch this film detail or the actor's detail based on our request, and then we are asking them to update this detail into the MongoDB. So if you look at here, I have a Mongo running in my local. Okay, so if you look at this, my application, one application is making a call to an API which is over the internet, and those detail I'm asking them to update inside my MongoDB, which is installed on my host machine. Okay, that is the second thing. Now, so two connections which we are going to try it on the first one. So what we are going to do is this particular application, I'm going to run it on my local so that I can show you how the behavior of the application before containerizing it. So what we do is click on terminal, new terminal. So you can see a Docker file. I'll be creating a Node.js Docker later. But what we do, we'll try to install this application on my local first. So somebody was asking, sir, how in the real world the developers will do. So developers first create the application and test that application on the local. On the local means on their personal laptops. So what I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to make this application work on my local before containerizing it. Okay. So npm install. And you can see here it downloaded package.json and node module. It basically downloaded the node modules. I need to fix this audit fix also. So npm audit fix. Okay. Now, once the package is installed, the npm is installed, I'm going to run that application. How? Node app.js. Okay, so the application is, it's just a warning, so we can leave it off. That means my application now is going and talking. So now what happens? So I don't have a container now. Okay, now in our new case, what happens is instead of this container, my Node.js application now going and talking into my MongoDB. Okay, on my local. So the setup is currently on my local. Now, if I go and we have a tool known as Postman. So in the developer field also, organization or the development team uses something known as a Postman application. Okay, now that particular application or Postman application is basically to test any APIs or to test any application. Okay, so what we are going to do is we are going to test the same application. So if you go here, you can see you can download this Postman and Mongo from internet, but everything is free of source. Okay, MongoDB is not a free of thing. You need to pay for a cost for this, but you don't want to worry about Mongo now. Okay, nothing to do with. So this is the Postman interface. Okay, now in the Postman interface, if I go, don't save, don't save. So this looks like the Postman interface. Now if you click on new, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to test my HTTP or HTTP APIs, right? And my application, which is localhost colon 3000. Now, my whatever I created via Node.js, it's an API. So API means I cannot access them via browser now. Okay, why? Because that's the way how the API works. Okay, now if I go to the application, you can see my application listens on port 3000. Okay, now if I go to the Postman and then if I go to a get request, okay, and make localhost colon 3000, okay, slash movies. Okay, so basically it defines that in our request, in my get request, if there is a path known as movies, what my application will do is my application will go and talk to this particular API. So basically go and talk to this particular API. Okay, so what we are doing, we are making a request. What request? A get request with slash movies. Okay, get request with a slash movies. Localhost 3000 means it is running inside my local machine, inside my local, inside my EC2 instance. Okay, sorry, inside my EC2 instance or in my Windows machine. So if I click on, it may take some time because they want to make that. So now you can see 200. Okay, that means I got a successful response from that API. How we can confirm? If you look at, there are movies list, it is presenting on the screen. Okay, now that is the one. What happened? My application now, which is running inside my host in not a container, is making a call to the internet. So my Node.js application now, which is running on my laptop, can make an API calls to the internet world. Okay, now if let's consider that I liked a movie known as A New Hope. Okay, you can see A New Hope. Now this movie details, I want to upload them into my MongoDB, into my database. So if you go here on the same application code, it says that any post request to slash favorite. What is post means? Anything which you are uploading into this particular path with all these details like URL, type, and name. They are making that request to add them into our MongoDB, which is running inside my local host. Okay, so what we do, we go to a new tab. Okay, and then it is not a get method, it is now a post method. Okay, and we are going to post something. So body, raw data, and then I'm going to give the details as a JSON format. Okay, now JSON format, of course, it will be with open and close bracket, then the name of that movie. So if you go here, I copy this and paste it here. It's not a title, it is known as name, and then next is type, it's movie, and then the URL, the URL of that movie details. So if I go to URL, put a comma here because it's a JSON file, and if I go to URL and then scroll it down, you can see the URL here. So I copy paste this and then add over to here, and then if I click on send, okay, so the post is again localhost 3000, but not movies. What it is favorite. So if I go to my code, you can see, where is that, slash favorites. Okay, and click on send. Okay, now this detail is already there in my Mongo. Okay, when I was testing it. So what we do is we basically go and add a different movie. So if I go to the get and then this particular movie, so I'm going to add this. Okay, and then Okay, now you can see it got saved. Now what basically happened? So I have one Node.js application which is running in my host. So if a client make a get request into in with a path known as movies, my Node.js application make an API call to this particular API, and then they fetches the details from this API and show them on the screen. Similarly, if the same request, if I make another request with instead of movies with the people, they make another API call to this particular API and list all the people. Now, if you liked one movie and if you want to save something, what you do, you make a post request, okay, to the favorites, to this particular path. So what happened with what details you need to send on the post request? You need to give the name of the movie, to give the type as a movie, and you need to give the URL. So these parameters you need to pass them on the post request. Once it is posted, it is basically going and updating, or my Mongo is getting connected to my local host. Okay, that means my Mongo is running on my local host and it saves those details inside my MongoDB. And if I make another get request to slash favorites, okay, so if a customer go on to the postman and make another get request in localhost slash 3000, whatever details are updated on my MongoDB. So you can see there are two movie details, a New Hope, which I added yesterday when I was testing it, and the Empire Strike. So these two movies now where it is located inside my MongoDB. Okay, so data is saved to in our MongoDB. Now what we are going to do is we are going to
Sir,
check the how now. Yeah,
post method type
hello.
equal to movie കൊടുത്തില്ലേ അത്
Mm.
എങ്ങനെയുള്ളതാ?
It's see basically in my application when I want to any application requires certain parameters to work for. That's the see you are getting a requirement from the client that okay, I want a application which basically go and fetch a movie details from a third party URL, and the customers can update their favorite movies to our database. That is the requirement which you are getting from the client. Okay, now there is a catch over there. They says that the movies can be updated to our database. So a movie can have what a certain details, right? I mean, name of the movie, the director of the movie, the actors of the movie, so and so. So what details you want to add to the database? That is the catch over there. So your client told, okay, I want to save the name of the movie, whether it is a movie or what is other one. We have movie or the people or the character, right? So what detail you are saving? So that is the part which you are talking about. It can be a movie or it can be a people, and the URL is from there. So this is just an application parameters. That's it. Are you getting?
Okay, sir.
So
Yes, yes.
if it is not a movie or a character, if you are passing this one, if fave type is not a movie or a character, you will get an error. Type should be a movie or character. Are you getting?
Okay, sir.
Now,
Yes, sir.
okay. Now what happened? Those details are now this application is running as what? This application is running inside my local. So my locally my application is working. So what happened? You will be having a Jira board, okay, in the real time. So in the Jira board, you will so your requirements are now whatever the requirements my your client gave. So every meeting in the real time, the clients will have or the business analyst team will be having their own requirement. So their requirement will be like this: uh, create an API. So they will just give a brief idea. So they will tell that our application need to make an API call to the vendor website, vendor API. Okay, and they will give that API details, which is over there. on the app code and provide an option to the customers to update their movies. Okay, so not update, store their movies. So this will be the general idea what your business analyst team must have given to you. Then you will be having your application team meeting with your leads and all those people. So then what you do, you start building the application. So your application is, you have done the application build and you tested it on the locally. So as a development team, will test this in the local on like how we did it as a local. So our test is working now. Application is able to go and make the API calls. Similarly, as a customer, I am able to update them on my MongoDB database. Now what happens? We will move them into a second part now. Now the team lead is saying that, okay, let's go and deploy this application inside a container. So what do you want to do? You want to make this application working as a container now. Now comes the actual our challenge now. Okay. Now let me go and stop this application. Okay, I can exit like this. So I'm accepted from the application. So now nothing will work. So if I make a get request also, it says that cannot connection refused. That means it cannot local host. It cannot find the local host now because the application we killed it, right? First thing first, let's go and make this as a image. Same from the last code, nothing changed. We are in, it's a node application, so node. We are setting the working directory to make the execution much speeder. We are copying the dependency file first, and then we are installing it, and then we are copying the those files except the Docker file into my container or into my image layer, and this is to run the application. 1 minute. Hello. അങ്ങനല്ല അതല്ല അതല്ല സംഭവം. ഞാൻ വരിക അച്ഛൻ്റെ അമ്മ കൂടെ വരണം. ഓക്കെ, അപ്പോൾ ഞങ്ങൾ ഈ ആഴ്ച വരാൻ വേണ്ടി നിൽക്കുമ്പോൾ മുത്തശ്ശി പോയിട്ട് ഇന്നലെ കഴിഞ്ഞ ആഴ്ച ഒന്ന് വീണു, കാലൊടിഞ്ഞ് കിടക്കുക. അപ്പോൾ ശില്പയ്ക്ക് അച്ഛപ്പോൾ ഓഫീസ് തുടങ്ങുകയും ചെയ്തു. അപ്പോൾ അവൾ ഓഫീസിൽ ഇനി ഇപ്പോൾ സ്പെഷ്യൽ റിക്വസ്റ്റുകൾ കൊടുത്തിട്ട് സെപ്റ്റംബർ വരെ. അപ്പോൾ അവൾക്ക് ഓഫീസിൽ പോകുമ്പോൾ എനിക്ക് ഒറ്റയ്ക്ക് എല്ലാം നടക്കൂല. അപ്പം അമ്മ ഡിപ്പെൻസ്, അതാണ്. ഞാൻ വിളിക്കണോ? ഞാൻ വിളിക്കാം. ശരി. Sorry. Adil was calling. Okay. So, okay, now, first thing first. So you created what? You created the JSON file. Any doubt on this application, how it works? If you're not understanding how the application works, you can speak now. I'll explain once again. Anyone?
Sir,
actually,
about
why
that.
Sorry, I am not getting your.
Actually, this build part, could you please explain?
Which build part? The application.
This time
The Docker
these
file.
the two files added here, node module and other some files are there.
Which one you are talking about?
If that time we made locally npm install or something, that some files are added here.
Yeah, this, see, when you, why are you running npm install first? So first we should get the dependencies of my application. Okay, my application have somewhat a dependencies. How every application knows their dependency is, there'll be a file known as package.json. I'm just going in depth. This is only for the application level. So what happened is, in whatever is there on the package.json file, all the dependency files, all these dependency files will be downloaded. You can see it is it is going and downloading. So what happened? All these dependencies file will be kept inside these node modules. Are you getting? All the dependencies files which they created will be put inside this node module. When you execute npm install, only that time what happens? These files will be created. Are you getting?
Actually, what about the version? Those things, how we know about the which node version is working or something like that.
Okay. You are talking about now in the Docker file here. See
Whenever
this.
we
No, you are the, see, you joined as a DevOps engineer or a cloud engineer.
Yeah.
They will not ask you to write a Node.js application. There will be an application. So in my case, okay, in our real time, I have an application team known as a central article tracking system. We call as CATS. So that particular team, their team members, they'll write the application part. They will write the application part, and in my case, they will create the image also. But I'll be working with them to on checking how they are building the images. Okay, so don't worry about this application part. This application part, they will help you. They will write that code. They will write the
uh,
dependency file. They will write everything. Your problem comes over here on the Docker file onwards. Application teams knows which node they are running, on which node version the application will support. Are you getting?
okay, if this made locally we build, after that we doing this one. We build now. Actually, we did.
We are not creating the application. I'm just pretending that I'm a developer. I'm creating the
Okay.
application. In real time, you in my real time, I'm not the one who developed this application. I have a application team for that. And that application team will test that application locally. How we did it like this. Today, just I've showed you, right, how they are testing it in the local. And once the
Okay.
local test is done, they will move and start testing on the dev infrastructure. I discussed this on the real on the class, right? We have dev infrastructure, UAT and QA, and then production. So dev infrastructure will be the same way how we are going to do it now. Instead of my local host, I'll be having what, an EC2 instance to test that. Are you getting? So let me
Okay.
go and delete the dependencies files. Yeah, you can ask your question.
Sir, actually, if we need to deploy any application, suppose it's a moving application, so the application team will be giving the all the dependency file of that application, and based on that application, we need to um, uh, make one image, and we need to build that image, and we need to run that image. That is the proper
First of all,
way.
you are not worried about what? You are not worried about the dependency part. Application dependency will be covered by whom? The application team.
Okay,
Your task will be, your main
okay,
task will be writing a Docker image, or writing a
okay,
Docker file or a Docker compose file.
okay.
That's your job.
Okay. No, sir. What I'm asking is, suppose if suppose the application team will be giving some application,
Uh,
so how we can identify which suppose Node.js or Python, which one we need to uh, like
that
which
is that.
what kind of
See,
Docker file we need to do
okay,
that
okay.
the
I
that
got your
is
question. See, first of all, when you start working with the real-time scenarios, okay, uh, just consider that you joined, you're working as an organization.
okay,
Today, somebody will not come to you and say that, okay, we want to deploy this as a container. They will
okay,
initiate the call, maybe a 1 week time or 2 week time. You will be having enough time. Okay, then they will give you a KT known as knowledge transfer, talking about
okay,
their application, what that application does. then only you can build the infrastructure. You are a DevOps engineer. First, what do you want to do? You want to deploy, or you want to what? You want to create the infrastructure first, right? All of you must have learned AWS or Azure or whatever, I don't know. First task will be creating the infrastructure. How you can create the infrastructure? You can only create the infrastructure from the discussion what we have it on the application team. So for example, in our this current setup, the current application what we are having now, if I am the infrastructure, or if I am the DevOps engineer for this particular project, I and you all 26 of you are the part of an application team. You guys know now the requirement from the client, right? You got this requirement from the client, these
Okay.
details.
Okay.
Now you what you do, you now know that, okay, how you want which database to use. You have various options like MongoDB. You must have learned about RDS now, right? I know your session is going on RDS now. You know what are the different type of databases, but which database to use, based on the discussion with your technical lead, with your team lead, you will come to say, and you will come and say that, okay, we are going to use MongoDB for that. Okay, and
Okay.
RDS does not have a MongoDB option. We have a different MongoDB cloud in our real time.
Okay.
Okay, now what happened? Now 1 week before, 2 week time, I understood about your application. So we build that infrastructure for you first. Maybe an ECS cluster.
Yeah.
Okay. Now next is what? We are just starting this project from the scratch. You will have 6 months time or
Okay.
8 months time to deploy this application for the production, maybe a 3 months time or a 2 months time. So the application team along with the business analyst and the head of the team will have a call and see that what will be the timeline to deploy this application to the production. Is it a simple project? Is it a complicated one? Is it a major complicated one? Some of the application development will take 3 months time or a four. It is known as a sprint in the technical
Okay.
world. So how long
Okay.
it will take? So what happened? You now interacted with this application team for every day. So what happened? You will be understanding about the application, right? I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
you know the nature of the application, whether it is a Python application or a Node.js application or a Java application. So what happened? You will be knowing about this application before you started, or maybe after a 1 week time, or you will be completely knowing about the application. Now what happened? Since you also know about the application, your job will be simple, right? If you know
Okay.
about the dependencies and all sort of things.
So based on that application matching, we will be doing one Docker file, right?
Yeah, based on the application nature. See, if you
Mm.
suppose, since it's going extend, I don't have any problem. uh, if I hope everyone is getting what is his questions and doubts. So now if suppose I got this project, okay, and then now what happened, your development team started working on that, and you are attending their stand up on a day to day basis. Now what
Okay.
happened, you got this application file.
Okay.
Okay, now since you are interacting with them on a daily basis, you know what type of application they are building. They are building Node.js application. Now suppose, consider that you are working on they are creating a Python application. So what happened, this will be changed,
Okay. Okay. Okay.
right?
Okay.
Not only that, this also will change. Not only that, this also will be changed, because Python
Okay.
application, there is a different way you can install the dependency and you can run them.
Okay.
Similarly, Java applications also, there is a different command you use to run the application.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, sir.
each application have what its own way to create the Docker file.
Okay. Okay.
It's
Okay.
not the same way what we are showing it over here.
Yes.
Ours is a Node.js. So what we do, we create what we build Node.js containers. I mean Node.js Docker file. Are you getting now, everyone?
Yeah, sir.
Anyone?
Yes.
Anyone have any other
Sir,
doubt?
one
Yeah.
one more doubt. If application having like we need to do for like two Docker file. Like in application, we are using Node.js as well as Python. So we will make that in a
No.
single Docker file.
See,
We will,
one application, how you can have two languages?
it won't be possible.
That's the main. See, I am building an application. Okay,
Okay.
I build either only on Java framework or Python.
Okay.
I can combine it, but each application language have its own way, right? Its own way to talk to different way. I mean, different services. So we will
Okay.
not
Okay.
combine what? We will not combine Python with Node.js. We will not combine. I mean, that is not a good programming technique. If I am
Okay.
building an
Okay.
application, I build in Java, or I build in Node, or I build in Python, or I build in C Sharp, or whatever the language which is possible in an easy way to achieve our target.
So if we are using one framework means the entire application will be running in the same one, right? Mostly.
Yes, yes, not mostly. Yes,
Okay. Okay. So first of all, sir, before we do a Docker file, we need to deploy that application in the uh, code, and after that we will be deploying that Docker file, right? That is the path route, right?
no. First, an application team will test them in the local. That's what we did it in
Okay.
the first now. Now we are
Okay.
going to the next stage in the project. That is what making that your client told your project manager, your team lead told that this time I'm going to deploy this application as a containerized application.
Okay.
Okay, so
Okay.
what happens? We
Okay.
are going to create the image first, right? From this.
Okay. Got it, sir. Got it.
Okay, anyone, any other question?
Sir, in that CMD, got two things, right? Node and app.js.
Hmm.
What what action it will do? Like
It
what
basically
it will
saying
do?
that if you look at here, um okay, uh, how I can say this, um, in the Linux, you write systemctl start, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Why are you using systemctl?
To start
Start the engine.
Start the okay.
start the like Docker or
Why are
something.
you not using um, a node there? So
Because
each application has its own way to run, right?
okay,
Each set of each application has its own way to execute certain commands,
okay,
right? So Node.js or Node applications we will execute using Node in the front. Okay,
okay,
and Python files have different format to run.
hmm.
That's the reason.
Okay, okay,
Okay.
okay.
Any other questions?
Hello.
Yeah.
I have one doubt. If normal deployment,
Uh,
who will take care about this building process?
we
Build.
DevOps.
We, no, normal case. If we deploy it to EC2 server, any
Whatever it is, deployment is on our head.
yeah, that mean this code we need to build. Normal case, not containers application, not microservice.
Which one you are talking about? Uh, uh,
Actually,
the
if
CI/CD pipeline. The see if I create a CI/CD pipeline, okay.
I'm talking about in not like microservice. We have any jar. The developer make develop the code.
Hmm.
After that, that need to build.
Yes.
Who will build that one?
Uh,
This case, not this case.
no,
Normal.
it's there. I am supporting three application team. One application team does require my help to create the build. Other two application teams, they have their own team members who know how to create the build. Are you getting
Okay,
it?
okay.
It's on which project you are working. Some of them will create the entire build. They'll say that this is the image we want to use it on our containers. So I write my task definitions on my ECS project. I just copy paste the image ID. That's it. Because they create the build for us. Are you getting?
Okay.
Okay. Anyone? You know to ask. See, I don't care if it is taking more time. You can ask like this. I want the class. I don't want people just sitting and listening. You won't understand now. Okay. Now what happened? The application now is working on my local. My team lead told that we need to containerize this. Okay. So what we do? We are building this. So I hope you know this image. I mean this part now, the Docker file part, and you know the command also. So Docker build, Docker image build, or Docker build, and minus T is for tag. What we are going to give? We are going to give a name for application. And since I'm not giving any tag now, it will add what the latest tag. Okay. And now it's building the image. What image? It's building this particular image, and you can see that it got created. Okay. Now next is what? We are going to run this as a container. Okay. So what we are going to do? Docker container run minus D. I'm going to run them in detached mode, and minus name sample it is. Okay. And minus rm. Sorry, minus rm. You know the command, right? Whenever I stop the container, the container has to remove. And minus p to map the port. So I'm going to map 8080 to 3000. 3000 is the where my application listens, right? And then I'm going to give a, this is my image name, right? Application. So I'm running it. Okay, what is this? Docker run. Okay, minus name it is. Sorry. Okay. Now what happened? You got the container. Now usually what happened in the next step is we will verify whether the container is running or not, right? It's just showing us a container ID. That doesn't means what? Whether the container is running or not. Now let how to verify it is Docker container ls. But if you look at this, the container is not running, whatever we created. Okay. And if I check minus a also, I'm not able to see that container which we created. Why? Because something, my container got failed to create. Okay. And it got what? It got removed. Why? Because if a container got failed to create, it will exit. So once it is exit, it will be removed. Why? Because of minus rm flag. Now what happened? The DevOps engineer and the application engineer will be having raising a question. Okay, why this got failed? Okay, so there is a bug in this, right? So what application team will say, or what uh, first as a DevOps engineer, what I'll check? I'll check whether my code is, I mean, my Docker file is correct or not. Now next is how I confirm this my Docker. I don't have any issues with the Docker file because my image got created, right? My image got created. So if there is a failure on my code on my Docker file, what happens? The image build will fail. So there is no issue in what? The Docker file. Now again the question will be asked by the application team says that the issues on the issues on your side, maybe something you must have missed on the Docker file. Now my responsibility is what? To troubleshoot why this is getting failed. So what I want the log file. Okay. Now to get the log file, what I do? I will run this container not in the detached mode on the front end. You know what happened if you run with minus D and without minus D, right? Now if you look at this, I'll get the logs on my screen as well. Now if I go here, the first thing it shows that is the error. So it says that over here, Mongo client constructor use my tracing warnings to show where the warning is created. Mongo network error failed to connect to the server localhost 2717 on the first connect. So now where is the issue? If you go back to my code, I know that I'm not specifying anything about MongoDB over here. Where is the network details about the Mongo is passed on my application? Okay, so it basically, this error basically says that they are not able to connect to this Mongo, which is running on my local host, which is running on my host. That means if I go to the image back, my container, which is getting created, is not able to talk to the MongoDB, which is running on my local host. Okay, now that's fine. I mean, that part, this particular part, the failure part, we will go and recheck it later. But now what I should confirm? I should confirm whether our first requirement, whether my container is going and talking to this particular API or not. So that we need to check first. That we need to check whether my container is going and talking into the internet or not. The MongoDB part we will check on the second testing stage. Okay. So what we need to do? Okay. Now I will comment this part because this is the issue what we are facing. So I'll comment this out part, control, and then sorry, control and this. So I commented this part. Now this code I am copying over the top. So that means now we are testing only the front end part, front end of only the Node.js part. Okay. Now can I reuse the same image? No, because I modified the application code. Now what I want to do, I want to
You build
build the
the
image now, right? So I will build the image again, and I will add a tag now, front end. Okay, now the image is ready. Now let me run the same container now with -d and the tag application colon front end. Okay, now let's go and confirm whether the container is running or not. So you can see container is running now. That means my Node.js part, the front end part is running. Now how we can confirm whether the container which is running on my host, let's consider an EC2 instance or my ECS, can go and talk to a API outside the world. How we can again go to the Postman. Okay. So again, what you make, localhost colon 3000 slash movies. Okay. Now where my container, where my application is running as a container now, but again map to localhost, and then you click on what? Click on send. Okay, not in 3000. The port is what? The port is 8080. Sorry. In my localhost, the port is 8080. Okay, now you can see what they were able to go and talk to. So now my container, so the first thing, now my container which is running on my host is going and talking into what? To the internet outside the world. That means my container can send a request to the internet. So the first use case is check marked. I mean, your first scenario is working. But what is the problem? Now, the problem what the developer is facing is, okay, why not my container is not going and talking into the internet without any issue, right? My container, my Node.js, my front end part is now going and talking into the internet without any issue. Now my question will be, okay, what about the container? Why my container cannot talk to an application which is running on my local host, right? Why my container, this container is not talking to an application or a service which is running on my local host? Correct. I mean, look at now, my container is not able to go and talk to this MongoDB service or a MongoDB application. It is keep on failing. Now, if I look at the code now, okay, before that, let's go back to the code and then I'll go and stop the container. Docker container stop sample. Okay, it's getting stopped and it is kill. Now you saw that where it is facing the issue, my application is facing the issue on this connection part, right? On this connection part, what they are having, they're having the problem. That means they are not able to talk to what, this particular URL. I'll remove this. Okay, now we need to modify this code now. Why? Because application this is not done by you, this is done by the application team. Now what application team has to do is, okay, locally when they do this testing, the host, the both your Node.js application and your Mongo was on the local machine. Now what happened, the Node.js is on the container and MongoDB is on the host machine on your laptop. So what they need to modify is, they need to modify this part. They need to say that host, this is an interview question, host dot docker dot internal. This particular domain will resolve to the IP address of your host machine. Okay, so if they ask you a question, if I want to connect a container to a service on your host, how can you do this? Okay, so the domain will be always what, this. So you need to modify what, you need to modify the service which you want to talk to the, I mean, you need to modify the application now, saying that, okay, please now go and talk to the this particular DNS. And this particular DNS now what? It basically resolves to the, it basically resolves to uh, the IP of your host. But again, now this is only supported on your locally where the desktop is there, Docker desktop is there. Now this will not support in the EC2 instances or ECS, because why? You don't have what, Docker desktop. Then how we will be doing that is what we are going to on the next step. Okay, so now what I'll do, I'll go and build this image again because I modified the code, right? Now I need to build this image and then I'll say, yeah,
So
you can
this one
understand.
for backend connection, right? If we,
Yeah, this is only for the local connection.
yeah, like backend connection.
Yeah, container to the host application.
Okay. So
Okay,
inside.
now
Okay.
if I'm going to make on the next case, I mean, in the real time this is not happening, this is only in the demo testing or on your testing phase this issue will come.
Okay.
Okay, now what happened, I'll go and build this image again. Okay, you can see that image now. Now, if I go and run that container again, instead of front end, I'll be running as what? Backend, BACK. The container is running now. Now earlier we were getting an error, right? Now let's go and see whether the container is running or not. You can see just 8 seconds back, the container is running. Now, if the container is running, I can do what? I can put a get request first. So that means my front end part, my Node.js is now trying to call that API. Okay. Now, remember in our first demo, when I was running this application on locally to my Mongo database, I made 2 updates, right? So if my now container is working now, I can see that on my database now, right? So if I go and make a get request, not on 3000, on what? On my 8080. If I send that, what you can see now, these 2 database entries we made when we were testing on the local. So now what happens? My container now going and talking into what? To the database which is running on my host machine. So what happens? This connection also now working. My container now go and talk to this Mongo now. That's the reason why you are able to get these details from what? To my database. Are you getting? Now, I told you this is not a solution what we have. What? Creating a service inside my host is not possible. Now my question to you will be is how I can fix this issue. I mean, instead of running my MongoDB as a service in my host, what else I can do to run my
ഹലോ അതെ അതെ ഞാൻ ഇപ്പം വിളിക്കട്ടെ ഞാനൊരു ഓൺലൈൻ
application?
Audio.
this
How you make the connection to MongoDB? That's the first thing you want to first find out, right?
we
So
can
we
attach
need
the
dependency of MongoDB
How
in
you can
we can attach two of the application to same network, then it is possible.
which application? I mean, my Mongo is running in my local laptop. How you can connect to your Docker network?
yeah, that's what, sir. We need to
We need
download
to
it
build
You need to build.
and
the MongoDB application in Docker only. Like, then it is possible, right, to
I
connect.
mean, how can you do that? That's my question.
sir, we need to download
Installing
the dependency of
MongoDB.
to install in our running network.
So
Like
you are
running.
saying that you need to go and modify the Docker file.
No, not like that. We will be having some
Okay, guys.
dependency file for.
Simple answer. You need to create a MongoDB container. Why are you
Okay.
scratching? I mean, why are you thinking so many things? What is the requirement now? The still now my uh, Mongo is on my host. Now what is my requirement? I don't want that. I want to have Mongo in. So having a MongoDB in my host is not a solution. What I will do? I need to create what? I need to create Docker. I mean, I can create a Docker file. Do I want to create a Docker file? No. Why? Because Mongo is already available in what?
Docker.
In your Docker Hub as a open source. MongoDB in Docker Hub. So you can see there is an official image. So do I want to build a Docker file for that? No, I just want to do what? I want to come here and I want to Docker container run.
To pull.
I don't want to pull. I mean, I can directly create from here, right? Why I want to pull this image?
Okay, okay.
Docker container run minus d minus name MongoDB and Mongo. Now, see, we are at the end of the Docker part. Okay, so think like little. Don't always see an interviewer will ask you a simple question, but and will ask you a difficult question. So the answer is first you try to find out the answer is there in a simple way instead of creating another Docker file. What is the simple way? Mongo is available as an open source or a official image, so I will run a container now with that Mongo. Okay, now I need to finish this today. That's why I'm just extending. No issues. We will try to finish this. So now what we are trying to do? Sorry, power went. Okay, let me start this. Okay. One second. Okay. So let's go and see whether what happened to the Mongo. Why? It's just starting only. The Docker desktop should be running in our local first to work. So we will just wait for this. Okay, that Mongo was not installed. So we will run once again. Docker container run -t -rm minus name Mongo db and Mongo. Okay, since it's going to run some time, I'm going to give you some time to now give me an option now how my Node.js can now go and talk to that MongoDB. So what change you want to make it over here? Anyone? Did you got my question? Now this particular URL mongodb://host.docker.internal that we added since my Mongo was running inside my host machine. Now what happened? My Mongo is running as what? My Mongo is running as a container now. Now how my Node.js will go and talk to my MongoDB? What should be those URL?
Container name.
Anyone? Which container name?
MongoDB container name.
Why are you
Labels.
using container name? Is there any other way instead other than the container name? Your answer. Is there any other way other than the container name? Anyone?
IP.
What IP? Good. What IP?
Private IP of the
What's
container.
Container.
which containers?
MongoDB container.
MongoDB container.
Yes. But you know already that it's not the right approach, right? Using the IP for the DNS.
Yeah.
We learned this when we learned about what? When we learned about
Network.
the network part.
Yeah.
Yes. So,
Yes.
but let's try with both the scenario. Let's try with the IP and then we'll see, okay, whether it is working or not.
ഒരു ടേബിൾ സംഘടിപ്പിക്കാൻ കുഴപ്പമില്ല.
Okay, now you can see the container will be running. How can you verify this? Docker container ls Mongo is running. How can you get? How can I get the IP of my MongoDB container? What is the command?
Inspect container.
Docker container inspect.
Container name.
Yeah, container name, that is MongoDB. And here you can see the IP, right? So what we do, we'll copy this IP now and then go and modify our code, right? We'll remove this and then add we'll add this and then save this. Okay, now I want to what? I want to build a new image, right? So Docker build a new image container. Okay, I'm building a new image and then I'm running a new application. I mean a new container. Okay, my container is running. Now if I go to localhost again in my Postman and then if I go to localhost again just to see whether my front end is working or not, I will make what? I will make a API request. You can see 200. Okay, so it is able to go and talk to the API and it fetch the detail. Now if I go to the localhost again to my MongoDB part, earlier what you are getting a 2 records. Now if I send the request again, let's see how many requests they are generating. How many requests? How many records they are getting? How many records? 0 records, right? Why? Why we are getting 0 records? Why not the 2 records which we updated? Anyone? Hello? Anyone? Did you got my question? Am I
Because
audible?
of
Hello?
IP, I think. Like.
No. Just think properly. When I earlier I was getting 2 records, 2 movie details, right? Now I'm not getting any of the details. Why? Hello. The Mongo earlier we were running in were
Host.
running on my host
Host.
machine.
First.
Now what we did, we moved that into a container. So is the
Yes.
data will be available?
No.
No.
No, right? So yeah, data is, I mean the data what we saved was on my local. Now what we do, we will try to add
Okay.
one more. I mean we will try to update these details in what? In my Mongo. Okay, it's 8080. Sorry. And mind you one thing, if you install Postman or your Mongo on your laptops, and if you are running your containers also, your system will be too slow. Okay, but don't install all these things unnecessarily. I'm just showing it just for your understanding. So now this is saved. So if I make a get request, okay, now what? One container Node.js can talk to what? Another container on the host. So what was our second scenario? If it's possible for one container to talk to other container, the answer is what? Yes. And what is the criteria? They should be on the
Same network.
same network, right? They should be on the same network. But we made a mistake over here. I mean, what is the mistake? We used the name of the, or we used the IP of the
Container.
container, but it is not a right way. So what is the right way? We told
Yeah.
create. We used to have our own. We can create our own network and deploy application over there, right? That is one scenario. Or else what? Instead of this IP, you create, you add what? The name
Yeah.
of the
Container.
container. Okay, so that means let me go and system is too slow. So I'm stopping the application sample. I mean, this is the part which we already learned about, the networking part, right? You remember the bridge network, the default network, and we can create our own network and deploy the application. I mean, why I didn't show you this example during that time was this must have given you more complications, right? Now you know all the sort of this, how the Node.js application works and all sort of things. That's why I just came back to this. And then stop MongoDB. I should not have stopped the MongoDB. Necessarily I stopped it. Okay, MongoDB stopped. So let me go and start it again. Okay, now I am creating. Okay, uh, uh, where is the volume mount part? So this is an anonymous volume. I can make it a named volume when I'm building it, right? So no worries. Now what I'm going to run, I'm again going to run my MongoDB, okay, in the my own network. Okay, so minus minus network. Sorry. First of all, I need to create the network, right? So Docker network create my network.
I think true unconditional love is like, do you love someone so much
And then
that even you would even love them?
I'll create
Like true
or I'll run my MongoDB in my own network minus network. What was the name of the network? My network. My network. My container Mongo is running with the name MongoDB. So you know the usage of IP is not a good practice, right? Because IP can be expandable, containers can be expandable, all sort of things. What I'll do, I'll use the MongoDB, name of the container. And then let's go and so what I want to do now, I want to run my node, the application container also on the same network, right? So first I need to build the image container 2. Okay, and now let me go and deploy that application, but in what, in my own network, minus network, my network. I'm not teaching about the network part because we already covered it, right? You know about bridge network, you know about the host network, you know about the null network. And that's it. I mean, now the application works the same behavior. Instead of the IP, now what they do, they name of the container to resolve that particular part. Okay, any questions?
Sir, actually, if you're starting one a new application with a MongoDB database, so we need to install some packages of MongoDB in the host. Then only no we can store the data that.
I mean, where you want to install the dependencies?
No, we are starting a new project with a new with an application from the scratch itself. So uh, we need one database. Suppose it's a MongoDB. So in the host OS, we need to install some dependency regarding MongoDB. through that only know that the database will work.
Say, MongoDB is just an application. Okay. So when you install an application, for example, when you install any game, do you
Okay.
install separate dependency for that game, or do you just install the game?
And
What do you do in the normal scenario? Suppose you are installing PUBG or a FIFA, okay, or FIFA on your laptop. So will you install FIFA, or will you install the dependency first and then install FIFA?
no, normal FIFA.
That's the same way. MongoDB is an application. So when you install that application, all the dependency related to that application will be downloaded automatically
Okay.
on your local. I'm talking about.
Okay. No, what I'm asking means, sir, if we need a separate database for storing the application
Hello.
files and those things, means we need. Hello, sir.
Your voice is breaking.
1 minute, sir. No, if we are having a separate, if we need a separate database to store the entire database things, actually. So at that time we need a specific storage service, specific
That
volume.
is why you have something known as RDS on your AWS.
Okay.
You have something known as an AWS RDS, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
You learned about that, right? I don't know whether you learned it or not. You have something known as an AWS RDS. So we'll be using that on our application.
Okay.
So your dependency related to those sort of things will be removed when we work with the AWS services.
Okay. Sir, these all things we will be doing for the bare metal, right? For ECR, like container service, we won't be doing, right? We like, what to say? We don't.
Which one don't require in container service? You will be having a host, either it will be an EC2 or a Fargate. Okay. There you will be deploying your applications via ECR, Elastic
Okay.
Container Registry.
Okay. So we will be here. We will be checking out the API calls and those things, no? So there we won't be.
Yeah,
doing.
instead of the local host, you will be hitting your load balancer IP, load balancer details.
Okay. Got it.
Local host is only for my laptop. So if I go to my ECS or ECR, I'll be using my load balancer. Which one is exposed outside, I'll be using that.
Okay. Got it.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. We will catch up on Monday. I'll be